This is VMP's Tuning Tuesday, Season 3, Episode 25. I'm Joe. This is Matt. Matt's back.
Again. I'm here. I am not in a fist fight with a car.
Exactly.
God. That thing beat me. And it was...
Beat you like a redheaded stepchild.
I'm still on my final... I'm waiting for the guy to let me know whether I was right in my diagnosis. With a bad battery in the car, I had an issue where whenever the cooling fan was on, the fuel trims would go to plus 30%, and then when the cooling fans turned off, it would go back down to 0. But it was not MAF wash. So I had a theory that the battery, which we do know the fact that the battery was destroyed in the car, I had a theory that the battery was bad, so the alternator, when it had to cover the load of the fans, was sending interference into the mass air frequency. And so I told him to change the battery and let me know. And he never let me know.
So here we are in the unknown. Justin Thal, are there any mid-level upgrades instead of ARP for head bolts? Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, just ARP.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to compete with ARP. Come on now.
Howdy. Howdy, Janssen 5.0. Howdy doody.
Hello. I will say...
Matt, you're doing terrible.
See, I missed a week, and now I'm out of practice.
You're off center.
Oh.
You're
I
off
was going to say that there's, for the LS stuff, there is non-ARP head bolts, but not for Coyote.
Sadness.
Hello, darkness.
Some all thread from Home Depot.
Ooh.
Don't do that.
I would not do that.
Zeke Zemero. Hey guys, kind of off topic, but will your Superchargers be on sale this 4th? I know last year they were on sale. Thanks.
I think they are.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the doc. They're not on sale.
They're not?
I'm getting a head shake. They're not on sale.
There's a trade-in deal currently.
Okay.
But give us a call.
Yeah.
We want to sell Superchargers.
So if you couldn't hear them, there's a trade-in deal currently, but there's no sale directly on Superchargers. So if you want to buy something, give us a call.
Fax. Joe is a fax machine.
Yeah, I try. You got that one.
What was it? Oh, Jesse Kasma?
Kasma.
Hey guys, love my tune, but inevitably it's time to come down for a supercharger. I understand.
Hit it up on that sale, dog.
Do it. Well, you just said there isn't a sale, Joe.
Yeah, but hit us up on the sale.
Oh.
It doesn't mean that the blower's on sale,
You
but
didn't
maybe
say hit us up on the sale.
Maybe like we can work them a deal on some included parts with the blower, stuff like that.
A ring, please.
Yeah.
Do it.
Call
them up.
Hit us up on the trap phone. Joe Thidabow, what's up from Texas? Hola.
Is it as miserably hot in Texas right now as it is here?
I think Chuck was saying it's 106 with the heat index here right now.
We've had we've had days that was close to 110. Saturday was 110.
Yeah.
I was out. I know.
I was out. I was out swinging the blunt end of my axe against wood, dismantling a deck floor. Because I don't have a sledge, so I just use the blunt end of the axe.
You're doing some real man shit.
Yeah, he was.
God damn.
Did you have your shirt off?
Crazy. No, I had a shirt on, but I did get really mad when I hit one of the deck beams. It's like a 16-foot beam that's like 6 inches. It's like 2x6 by 16. I hit one of them, and I thought all the screws were out of it, and I was just pushing it apart, but they weren't all out of it, so it like swiveled and shoveled a bunch of sand on my feet, and I was like, God damn it. Because then I don't tie my shoes, so I had like a shovel load of sand inside my shoe. And I'm hot and I'm sweaty, and now I have sand in my shoe. It was a bad time.
So what Joe, a lot of people don't know about Joe is he was actually Tom Cruise's double for the volleyball scene in Top Gun. And
that's true. You can Wikipedia that.
Yeah, you can Wikipedia that one. So that's why when he was all hot and sweaty and then the sand was all over him, it was like some flashbacks from the time.
Yeah, it was bad for me.
Yep.
Justin Thal, how do you guys feel about voltage stabilizers like basically a bank of capacitors for the whole system? I don't really have any direct experience with using a bank of capacitors.
I know that people use them in car audio.
Yeah.
And I know they work in car audio, which is the same concept. They use it to stabilize voltage to the amplifiers.
Although that's traditionally with very large spikes that happen very quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas with performance side of things, it's usually not a thing. At least not 80, 90 amp draws over the course of half a second or anything.
All you have to really worry about is like when the fans kick on and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. RG My Life. Or wait,
Yeah.
Philip Davis, I have a 2014 Coyote. How much power can be gained just from tuning? Under the curve, 30s, top of the curve, depending on what
Yeah.
fuel you're using, 20s, 30s.
Depends on the fuel.
Yeah.
I said anywhere between 10 to 30.
Mm-hmm. Just depends.
RGR my life. Is there
You got
anything I
this.
should look out for when supercharging my high mileage Gen 1 Coyote? No, not really. The only thing I would say, there's a couple factors. One, are you the one that put the high mileage on it versus someone else? Because if someone else put all the miles on it, you might want to check it out a little bit more thoroughly. The only thing I would say is before you get ready to supercharge it, I would do maybe a compression test and a leak down test to make sure it's overall really healthy before you put the blower on it. Other than that, no, not really.
Yeah,
Take care of it. It'll be fine.
nothing I can think of. Joe, what transmission would you guys pair with a 5.0 new edge swap? If it's just going to be a naturally aspirated 5.0, I'd probably put a built T45 in it. T56, they're cool because they're 6-speed and you get to say it's 6-speed.
That
and
first gear is so terrible.
yeah, and the thing I don't like about the T56 is it doesn't like high RPM
No,
shifts.
it does not.
So you're going to run into an issue. Well, not necessarily run into an issue. Depends on how high you're talking about revving it. But the T45 in terms of high revving,
Yep.
and if you're talking about trans capacity and built form, the T45 will support a fully
Yeah.
built naturally aspirated new edge. And
I mean,
if you're
honestly, a T45 with some upgraded synchros and aluminum shift forks was like the thing to do back in the day.
Mhm.
Like that trans could take a lot,
yep,
and people just never. But if you had a shifter with
Yep.
shift stops,
yep,
like that was
like the Pro 5.0 with
like,
shift stops.
or the Steeda Triax, something
Yep.
that absolutely had to have shift stops, and they had to be adjusted correctly because that would make or break that trans.
hmm
So
If not that, I'd put a TKO 600 in it.
I had one of those too. I didn't hate it.
Neil Thomas, why does Florida not have more 85 pumps? I don't
Because
know.
we don't grow corn here.
You can, if you had audio in my cars when I go up to a gas pump and my wife's in the car, you will frequently hear me complain that E85 is not more prevalent and they put stuff like 89 at the pump.
Yes.
And it's like,
Nobody on the planet uses that.
nope. And I think the only reason it exists is because I don't think it's a separate tank.
Yeah, it's
I think they're
probably a
blending
blend.
the 87 and the 93 to a certain ratio, but I don't know
You're
that
probably
for
right,
a
I never
fact.
thought of that.
But to that end, I don't know why Florida doesn't have more E85
Well, that's
pumps.
because the only thing you can buy is wreck fuel.
Yeah.
That's the boat gas everywhere.
Yeah. And
Everywhere.
what's silly about that is most of it's like 90 octane.
Not even.
A lot of it's 87.
Yeah, I
but
would say a majority of what we call wreck fuel, a majority of what I've seen has all been 87 wreck fuel,
and for,
which is
for
arguably
lawnmowers
worse.
and weed whackers, that's fine because you put higher octane in them and the manufacturers don't recommend it and all that shit. But then you get into like boats and stuff that's going to sit forever and
Right.
jet skis and
Well, that and the
It's
fact
like,
that
just put 93 in
87
it.
without alcohol in it is actually lower octane than.
well, technically it should still be 87 octane. I mean, we won't get into all that. Ed Dawson, my intercooler recirculating pump keeps running on killing my battery. I've tried the suggestion of making sure to kill the run power prior to exiting the vehicle. I'm Roush charged and VMP tuned. So we made a revision to the intercooler pump trigger harness that changes how the pump comes on because there was occasionally people that had issues with it running too long, and that has to do with the 12-volt power circuit on the PCM harness staying active longer for evap on some strategies, whereas on others it doesn't stay active that long. But anywho, we changed the way it's triggered, so if you're having problems with that and you want to try something else, we can tell you where to wire everything up and possibly even supply you with the stuff you need to wire that up. Justin Thal, you got this.
If you want to run, if you want to run pump gas with 85 on the weekends with a better fuel pump than a Coyote, is the DW400 a better choice, and it will be supercharged.
So if we're talking about a single pump factory drop-in replacement, to me a DW400 is not adequate.
No.
Unless you're talking super low boost.
Yeah, I would say they're only marginally better than even a factory pump.
If you're talking about a return style fuel system and you're going to run 2 of those bad boys, the
That's
DW400s are fine.
Yes.
Or if you're just running a aftermarket fuel system to begin with. But if you're talking about a naturally aspirated car that runs on pump gas and E85, I'd just run the stock pump in it.
Yeah, and if it's
Although he says
He
supercharged.
says supercharged. If it was supercharged, I honestly would just not play games and put a system in the car.
Yeah.
Especially like the VMP system is so reasonably priced.
And then it's so much
Just-
easier to install.
It's so much easier to install. Just do it. It's
Yeah, you'll
fuel
spend-
systems are cheaper than engines.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, well, look, the pump's only $200. Why should I buy this $1,700 fuel system when I
Yep.
can just get a pump for $200? Doesn't the pumps replacing? If you do a drop-in replacement pump that you swap the factory fuel pump assembly out of the bucket and you just drop it in, a lot of times those don't work the way that they need to. I don't know of how else to explain that other than they work great on a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
You put them in a factory hat and they don't work that great anymore.
And you're right, and I don't know what the limitation is. We did, when we were doing some 18, on some ProCharger 18 testing, we got some of the first ones they made 2 years ago. And same situation, it was only marginally, I mean, we had a DW pump with a booster pump, and we were still out of fuel at 800 to the tire. It just wasn't that, and we were doing 700 on the stock pump, so it was like, it bought us a 100 horsepower window. But
Yeah.
even then, it was still completely out of fuel, so it bought us maybe a 50 horsepower safety window.
Exactly.
It wasn't worth the hassle.
And along those same lines, we're not saying the DW pump's bad, but when
No.
you try to get it to work in a stock hat, it doesn't perform
Correct.
at its best.
Correct.
Stu Boyce, getting in here early. Is that your boy?
No, I was going to say that's, never mind. Anyway. Getting in here early, car is a 16 GT E85 TVS. On the latest version, the long-term fuel trims are turned on, and my car is very happy. Would you mind walking me through the advantages and disadvantages of using long terms? Well, the biggest advantage is you can pass emissions.
Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest advantage.
The best way I can describe the difference between your short terms and your long terms is that the long terms are stored. God, I don't know about this.
They're stored in a 3D table.
Yeah, well, I've used it kind of used it like a radio situation where you have to manually find the channel. So you're
I'd say it's a
constantly
good comparison.
You're constantly having so the short terms is you constantly turning the knob and having to find the channel, and then you have gone through and you have figured out what channels you like, and now you have programmed them into memory. So now in the future you just go to whatever radio station you want, and you don't have to mess with the knob anymore. So that's how the long terms kind of work is after the computer has run these short terms and it kind of figures out, okay, I need 3% here, I need negative 4% here, I need 10% over here. It stores that, so then in the future it already automatically makes those fueling changes for you ahead of time without relying on the sensors to see a lean condition and then add it back in, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So because the fuel is already there or not there, it's already taken into account, and it doesn't have to make the adjustment for you, and it provides overall a smoother running vehicle.
Yeah.
Provided that your calibration or your tune that's in the vehicle is dialed in, because the less you rely on fuel trims, the better. Ideally, you want both long terms and short terms to be 0. So, but the long terms are very good at making adjustments for things here and there.
Yeah, and if the long terms and the short terms are both within 10%, chances are the car's going to drive fine.
Yeah, that's what we kind of hold. That's our standard is 10%. Generally, plus or minus 10% is acceptable. I always try to shoot for like plus or minus 5, or even less if I'm being really anal. But anything more than 10 is you're going to start running into issues and also check engine lights.
Yeah.
So.
Virtualized. I data logged my FBO Boss 302 and my tuner shows that it has knock and no timing is being added, and he wants to fill up on 93 and add 3 gallons of E85 to see if it's the fuel. Is that safe?
Sure.
If he's accounting for the stoic point, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Or the stoic change, it should be fine, but I would just use an octane booster so I'm not chasing stoic point as well,
Correct. But
such as been alluded to. Mustang.
Whoever is tuning it, that's fine. It's if that's what they want you to do, and he's adjusting the tune for said 3 gallons of E85, there's nothing wrong with it. Do what your tuner says.
True story. Adrian E., that VMP Mustang was consistent AF, consistent air fuel during Rocky Mountain Race Week. We appreciate that. Appreciate that someone noticed that our car's out there and that we're the people that, maybe not us specifically,
No,
but the
not
company owns that car. KPY4EHET Mad Max. Have finally installed a JLT cold air intake on my wife's 2010 Auto V6 and loaded your tune. Works better, but still has a leg in between
Probably
shifts.
lag.
Should I send a log to Michelle? If you want us to adjust that, I suggest sending a log in to Michelle.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we won't be able to do
she'll
anything.
get you fixed up.
And Travis Shot, I've been recently experiencing after a 10 to 15 minute drive that coming down from 6.5, 5.4 and sometimes third and first, it will not seem to want to come out of gear easily, like someone has a strong magnet holding onto it. I've tried a stopper which helped a little, but with how it gets, it can't be good. I've got a 15 GT with a flat stick MGW X spec and a Mantic Cerametallic twin disc. Any ideas?
Interesting.
So
Oh, so he's saying that is he
You
telling
said
you to
it's
stop,
notchy?
It's hard to get the shifter out of gear.
So
Back into neutral. So it sounds like it's not disengaging. Is what it sounds like. He's
Possibly.
it sounds like the way I'm interpreting this is that it's taking extra effort to push it out of the gear into neutral.
Yeah,
Is this
that's what I
correct?
picked up.
That's the way I'm gathering, which would be that the transmission or the clutch is not disengaging all of the way.
would that mean you would also be driving either negative or positive torque? In this case, since he's decelerating, negative torque across
Right.
the transmission.
Correct.
So if he wants to isolate whether or not it's the clutch, just don't change any speed and push it out of gear.
Yeah,
Have no XL, no decel, push it out of gear.
yeah.
If it's not a problem, then chances are something's grabbing.
Yeah, if you have no load on it whatsoever, you're not accelerating or decelerating, and it comes out easier than on a decel.
My
then-
question is, what does he mean by try to stop her? Is he thinking that he's overextending the
Yeah,
throw
I'm
or the
guessing that
displacement of the
he
slave?
put some kind of stopper in the shift linkage, which don't do that. That might, if you.
Unless he's talking about a stopper on the travel of the clutch.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Try that again. Let us know.
Yeah.
More details.
Cringe Star, what's a safe amount of boost you can run on a third gen Coyote on E85?
Yes.
I like that answer. I like that answer. If you want to call it safe,
What was?
0 pounds of boost.
Yeah. No. What was? My microphone fell out here.
Staying mode.
Staying mode. Thank you. Jesus, the green one.
So that was a stage 3 blower with a 79. It should be making about 13 pounds peak.
There it is.
So if you want to run that, you can run that. If you don't want to run that, then you don't have to run that.
I wouldn't go more than that unless you
But
have
to-
another engine. So what we do is go buy a short block, put the short block in your garage next to the car, then the engine that is in the car will never break, and you'll be fine. It's a proven fact. Now, sell the short block because you think you don't need it, it's blowing up the next day.
Yep. Jonathan Rodriguez.
Next poll.
I'm installing my Gen 3R on my Shelby GT500 with a 163R throttle body. Will it not have fail-safes anymore? Mike I. Shelpin.
Mike is helping me.
Mike is helping me with the tune. I can't make any guarantees to anything. 163, we have one on our 12 GT500. We drive that on the street.
Yep.
And I think before we put the heat sink on it, it did it a couple times, but I don't think it's done it since, but I'm not sure.
It's also 110 degrees outside.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Justin Thal, who's your preferred engine builders for sub 1,000 horsepower Coyotes?
Ford.
Yeah, Ford Racing Illuminator is a nice way to get one because you're not waiting months to get it,
Yeah.
at least if it's in stock. It's
Really,
shipped to
you can't really go wrong with anyone. I mean, God, there's a bunch of them. Fast Forward.
Yep, Fast Forward, Siley race
from
engines.
Fast Forward, we've had really very good luck with those. NPR, Tim and NPR, Good dude, known him
I've
for
heard
years.
stuff from RGR,
RGR is, which is JPC.
RPG, or
It's
something
RGR
like
from
that.
JPC Racing.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
thing. You open a
three-letter
speed shop.
acronyms.
You open a speed shop and you make an acronym, a 3-letter acronym.
Yeah.
Mine was just 2. It was just KM.
S, S, S.
But
That's probably not a good one to use.
No, I would,
Stay away from that one.
so
yeah.
any
Okay.
of your main builders are fine. Just do your research. Everyone's gonna have mess ups. Also Mike at L&M. So just do your research.
Was yours NK Racing?
No, it's just KM, Exciting Motorsports.
Oh, I love that. That's dope.
So you never saw my logo and stuff?
No.
I have to show you. Google it.
Okay.
It's out there in the wild.
Yeah.
He's about to do it right now.
Frederick Massey. Hey, just got finished installing the Dash 8A and return mat. I wanted to see if you could explain the fuel pressure drop across injectors and kind of how that works. I couldn't find a lot.
So what he
online
was doing
while-
is he had there it is. What'd you think, Brian?
It's not bad.
All right then.
I could.
So M's greater than Casati?
That was the second version of the logo. But anyway, we'll get there. So what he had twin 465s with a dash 6 return. So my idea was that the return was not big enough and he couldn't get the pressure down low enough.
So you're saying in the fuel system, like he was having issues with it being rich at idle or something?
Yeah, well, he's had issues, and also we're having an issue where it shows 43 psi on a mechanical gauge, but it shows 50 plus psi on pressure drop across the injectors
Well,
on
that
the
would
data
make
log.
sense.
Right, and he's also adding, he's changed the sensors out, and it reads the same and things like that. So I had it. He said he had a dash 6 line for return. I'm like, that's pretty small for a set of 465s. So he went ahead and changed it. It wouldn't hurt by any means.
No, it's not going to hurt being Dash 8.
So anyway, to answer your question, pressure drop across the injectors is the pressure on top of the injector minus the pressure or vacuum underneath the injector. So when you're driving around and you have vacuum on it, the vacuum is sucking on the bottom of the injector, and the vacuum or the pressure on the top is pushing on it, so you effectively have more than 43 psi on the injector. And then vice versa, when you have boost, if you have 40 pounds on the top of the injector, but there is 10 pounds of boost pushing back, you now have 30 psi of pressure drop across the injector.
So rail pressure minus MAP is
Correct.
pressure drop across injector.
So, usually when you're data logging a PID though, so when you're data logging the fuel pressure drop or fuel pressure across the injector, it takes those two into account. Excuse me. So, what you would want to shoot for is if everything is calculated correctly and the sensor's working correctly, you would be able to see, if you had, let's say you wanted 43 psi, it would show 43 psi at idle, and it would show 43 psi with 20 pounds of boost. So, because,
So wait, are you talking about pressure drop across
Yes.
injector? Yeah. Yep.
so I hope that helps you. So, either way, you've got the Dash 8 on there, you've got a good working sensor on there, we can move forward now, and in the nicest way possible, I don't care what the mechanical gauge says, because the computer only cares what the sensor says. So we'll tune for that and we'll see what happens.
Stu Boyce, what factors can go into the risk of lifting a cylinder head? Would a turbo car at X rear wheel horsepower have better chances than a blower car at X rear wheel horsepower? So it's cylinder pressure
I got this, Joe.
and a
So turbo cars do effectively have less cylinder pressure at a given horsepower than a blower, simply because of the fact that a blower takes power to make power. So, 30 pounds of boost on a blower car versus 30 pounds of boost on a turbo car, the blower car is effectively making more cylinder pressure, but the blower is using some of that to make the boost. So, I shouldn't have said 30 psi. I should have said 1,000 horsepower to 1,000 horsepower. So, effectively, a 1,000 horsepower blower car is going to have more cylinder pressure than a 1,000 horsepower turbo car, because that blower is using some of that power. So technically, you would have a greater risk of lifting ahead on a 1,000 horsepower blower car than you would a turbo car. But that's more, lifting ahead really has more to do with clamp load on the cylinder head, the type of head gasket, and the tune that is in the car, and fuel type. Tuned properly, it doesn't matter.
Can I add something?
Oh, yes.
I guess more of a question, really.
Sure.
I just want to see. So I remember a long time ago, me and Justin and Chris did the 1,000 horsepower compare. It was like 1,000 horsepower with turbos,
Yes.
like twin turbos, and 1,000 horsepower with, I can't remember if it was a Gen 3R or a Gen 3, but either way, it was one of our superchargers, right? One of the two. And I remember distinctly, like, the thing that, like, kind of blew my mind, because I'd always heard about the two, but I'd never really seen them compared ever,
Correct.
right? And I remember, like, at the end of the video when I was putting it together, like, the biggest shock to me was, like, look at how much torque, like, we make right off the jump,
Correct.
right? So what, can you explain that? And, like, why did I see that? Like, why does it look like that on the dyno graph? And, like, why is that?
Yeah, superchargers, especially one of like a TVS, like ours, for example, makes instantaneous boost. It doesn't matter what RPM you're at; it makes boost.
Okay, if I can pull the memory from the video, I think Justin explained it as because the supercharger is like directly related to the crankshaft,
Correct.
right? And
It's
like,
already spinning.
right.
Yes,
right,
the
right.
blower,
Okay.
it's because it's driven off the belt. That blower is spinning. It doesn't matter if you're at part throttle, no throttle, full throttle. At 4,000 RPM or 2,000 RPM, it is spinning the same speed, regardless of throttle position. Because the only thing that changes the speed of the blower is the pulley ratio or the RPM itself. So the blower is
Right.
already spinning, the blower is already moving all of the air that it will move, but the bypass valve is taking that air and it's just recirculating it.
Right.
The second that you go full throttle, that valve closes and all of that air, which is boost, because the engine cannot use all of the air that it's being shoved in it, therefore your manifold pressure goes up. So the second that valve closes, you have boost. A turbo doesn't work that way. A turbo sits there because a turbo is driven off of exhaust gas. When you're cruising or you're at idle, there is not a lot of exhaust gas, so it's just kind of lollygagging along. You have to go full throttle. When you go full throttle, now your exhaust gas has a large amount of volume coming out of the exhaust. Now the turbo starts to accelerate because now it has this flow. As the turbo accelerates, it starts pushing more boost into the engine, so you have to wait for that, aka turbo lag. So basically at the end of the day, you can take a TVS, you can go full throttle at 2,000 RPM, and you can make boost, depending on how it's pulleyed, you can make 20 pounds of boost at 2,000 RPM. But on a small displacement engine like a Coyote, you're not going to have enough exhaust velocity on a turbo car to make any substantial boost at 2,000 RPM. You have to wait for that engine to speed up so it has enough exhaust velocity or volume to make the turbo do something. So that's
Unless
the
you have an
difference.
EcoBoost.
Unless you have an EcoBoost and the turbo's the size of a quarter.
That's why it spins up so fast and makes
Right.
the boosties.
So that was the very long version of how that works.
All right.
Justin Thal, watching Cletus and Cooper having fun is my nightly ritual. Hell yeah. Virtualized, would you say a 66 coupe would be a better transplant for a pushrod 5.0 than a Fox body? Trying to make a mild drag build, not sure if you answered this question or not.
I happen to have a 65. And I can speak for the fact that it's almost weird what's going on in the Mustang world right now, where we've almost reached a point where your older 60s Mustangs are almost cheaper than Fox bodies. Because we've got into that whole era where
Nostalgia's kicked
this
in.
nostalgia is kicking in, and now everyone wants, like, I'm watching super clean Fox bodies go for far more money than super clean 65s. Your issue, you're running with two things. One, you're talking about rack and pinion steering versus a regular traditional linkage steering.
Steering box, Pitman
Arm,
idler.
steering linkage. And also keep in mind the 65 car is going to be a leaf spring car versus a Fox body is going to be a 4-link triangulated. So drag car wise, the Fox body is always going to be superior. That being said, the 65 looks better, fight me. And obviously it can be made just as fast and can be had arguably for a reasonable price. And the aftermarket is just as big for the 60s now as it is for the Fox bodies as far as restoration. So honestly, either one of them will work anymore. So I'd rather see a fast 65 than a fast Fox body. But that's me.
I feel you. D-Man Dimitri, Joe needs some Promised Land milk. I actually drank the last of my Promised Land milk that I have here on lunch. So sad.
Oh. Have you considered having it delivered?
I have
Like
not.
getting like a Swan's delivery truck to bring you.
You want me to hit up Joey? We just had him order paper towels.
Cringy star. I'm on 16 pounds Fitchin Whipple fuel system long tubes. So is that who was asking?
How much boost to save?
Yeah.
I think it was commentary.
I feel
towards
like-
that.
Okay, I feel like
It's not the
you're
same
already
price.
what I would consider to be not
Yeah.
safe. If you want it, I hate the word safe.
16
and fucking
pounds
shit
is
blown
fine.
up.
17 must be better.
Yeah. Topper Harley, Joe, when are you sending me the wheelie tune? I need
Ooh.
a Papa Wheelie this weekend for freedom reasons.
I understand that.
I don't want you to get offended, but I don't know who you are, Topper Harley.
Aww.
If you can like give me
Yeah,
a hint
did
at
you
your
hear
real
that?
name,
That's how
I might
unimportant he is.
remember. It's not it.
Yeah, just kidding.
Wheelies for freedom, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to do a wheelie, hit it with a fucking nitrous bottle at 1,000 psi.
I can see the
or
Google
hit it
review.
with a mother bottle.
I can see the Google and Facebook review now. VMP gave me a tune and broke my axles. I hate them.
Why does happen to me? John Smith, what transmission would you prefer for a 650 wheel horsepower Gen 1 Stage 3 MT82 or T56 Magnum? What would be the pros and cons of both? Sorry if the question is too broad. If it was me,
I do the MT.
and it was my car, I would do a TR6060. I wouldn't do a Magnum.
I wouldn't do a Magnum.
Yeah.
But I also really like the. People talk a lot of crap about the MT82, but when it's built properly, is actually the gear ratio is quite nice. The
It's
gear
got a
spread
nice
on
spacing.
the gear spread on an MT82 is a really nice, it's a good situation. So
Mhm.
I have nothing but good things to say about mine.
I like, yeah,
Mhm.
I never had a problem with mine either. I liked my MT82 when I had one, so that's me. But the Magnum, I did for what it's worth. I took the because they didn't have built MT82s back then. I took the MT82 out and I went to a Magnum XL, which is basically the Tremix version of the 6060, and it was incredible. Shifted like butter, just every gear. So either one, can't go wrong.
Travis Schott, I put a stopper behind the clutch pedal.
Okay.
I'm pushing the pedal down far enough for proper disengagement of the clutch to switch a gear. The other upgrade was a stainless hydraulic clutch line. So my only question is, how sure are you that you got all the air out of the system?
Yeah.
It does sound like that, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
You need a bleed.
Yeah. The tricky part is that in order to get it like really truly bled, at least all the way from the save to the line, is to disconnect the line from the slave master. I know that's a hot topic right now, but disconnect the line from the slave master, pull the trans out. You don't even have to like pull it down, just pull it out far enough to where you can access the slave and actuate it. And then just like put your slave line like all the way from the trans all the way up to where it connects to the brake booster. Put it in like a cup of brake fluid or something and just actuate the slave cylinder itself fully through the range of travel. Put it back in the car, hook it back up to the slave master reservoir, and then pump the slave master reservoir, and that'll get rid of any residual that's left in the line back up to the reservoir.
Or you can
you should be
vacuum
good.
bleed the hell out of it too.
Yeah, that's just tricky because
It
it
is
doesn't
very
have its
tricky.
separate reservoir.
I know, so you end up sucking the brake calipers in too, but it works really well.
Yeah.
Can't stop, but my clutch works.
Well, you just got to pump the brakes back up again.
Yeah. Jonathan Rodriguez in a GT500 2008, same day, same setup. What would you think would be the difference in horsepower between Gen 3, Gen 3R, 6? Thanks for your help.
Depends on pulley ratio.
Yeah, are you talking about trying to run at peak boost versus peak boost? If that's the case, then Gen 3R is going to make a tiny bit more power up top.
Yeah, if you're running 8 PSI, there's not going to be really any difference at all.
I don't even know if you can get a pulley on a Gen 3 or Gen 3R to get them to make 8 PSI in an 08
Well, I was just saying
GT500.
as an example.
Yeah,
If you're running really low boost, basically the harder you spin a Gen 3R, the better it's going to do versus a Gen 3.
True story.
Best way I can describe it. So if you're running at 10 psi to 10 psi, there's probably not going to be very much difference at all, other than maybe lower IATs. At 30 pounds of boost, the Gen 3R could make 200 more horsepower. It just kind of depends on the engine combo.
Yeah, I wouldn't. From the sake of
Legality
just throwing
reasons.
numbers out, I wouldn't say it's going to make 200 horsepower more, but
Decent amount.
Gen 3R makes more than Gen 3, period. My back hurts.
I love it.
Smile, Joe. Great clips will open back up on Monday. So I shaved my own beard, but I didn't have time to shave my own head this morning, so I'll probably do that tonight. That takes a long time, and cleanup's a pain in the ass.
Be gaming. So we got my back hurts and be gaming.
Yep. Can you put Odin on the Godzilla engine, the F-250s? No, you can't.
Not yet.
Jace Jesse, hi guys. I purchased a Gen 3 last week for my 2014 GT. I'm super excited to be part of the VMP family.
Did you get a
Glad to
tune
hear.
from us as well?
I mean, if he bought a kit, it comes with a tune.
Or maybe he bought
He
it
just
used.
has
He didn't
to.
specify.
He has to request the tune though, or
You
fill
should.
out the form.
You should request the tune.
Sting Addict. Hey, what's up, Mr. Joe, Mr. Matt? What do you guys think of a Gen 1 Coyote with a TKO 600?
Face-plated T56. Ah, now we're talking, Joe.
Wait, who said anything about a
Or I'm
face-plated
sorry, TKO 600 I meant, sorry.
I'm like, what?
A face-plated
Where did
TKO
fucking
600 is what I
T56
meant to
come
say.
Yeah, I'm about it.
Absolutely. Ask any of the Coyote stock guys. Shifting it on the bumper.
It'd be a good time.
That's
I'd say the only thing that trumps that's a G101. Travis shot. There's been a noise that sounds like air bleeding. That sounds like air is bleeding off that I can hear when I'm in or coming into the garage.
It's about the clutch.
Does
it sound squishy? Can you hear air or fluid squishing when you push the clutch pedal in? Because that's definitely air.
Yeah.
Like if you're pushing the clutch pedal in and it's hot and you can hear it making a squishing noise, that would definitely be
If it
air.
sounds like you're stepping on a rubber ball.
Yeah.
Leon Map.
Yeah, he just dropped his car off.
Oh, nice.
That's the intercooler pump is not working. We have to. I
Sad.
started looking at it before lunch and I haven't finished it.
Are you talking about the
The black
white stripes?
Yep.
Okay.
So it has a throttle body issue, but my theory is that we know that the intercooler pump is not working, and my theory is that the blower is getting so hot that the throttle body is also overheating.
Yeah, it's possible.
This is my theory.
So
So I have to fix what I know is broken before I can chase what is not broken, or what I don't know is broken.
yeah, check the relay first, and then do a hose bypass and see if the connector on the intercooler pump's fried. I've seen them get fried a few times
we
now.
haven't got that car. We just kind of pulled the relay and jumped it, and it didn't do anything. So
Okay.
that's all the farther we got.
Dakota Haywood, 10 GT500 Gen 2 VMP, planning to be on 21 pounds of boost with
Let's
boosting.
the party.
Is it worth it to go to a Gen 3R to run less boost and make the same power for safety reasons? I'd say that if you already have the Gen 2, just rock out, dude. Especially if you're talking about just playing around on boosting with a stock engine. Although Gen 3R will make more power, whether or not it's worth it really depends on what you plan on selling the Gen 2 for. If you plan on selling the Gen 2 for close to what you paid for the Gen 3R, then it's worth it. But in the real world, a Gen 2 is probably only worth $1,500 to 2 Gs on the open market right now because you're competing against the Ford Racing Trinity pull-off blowers, our old Gen 1 blowers, and the
Ford
pricing
Racing, and the Ford Racing 2.3 Whipples
and the pricing that Jordan Weir has on Gen 3s right now really makes the Gen 2s, Ford Racing blowers, all that not great of a bargain.
Yeah.
So to that end, if you're out 2 Gs on the swap from blower to blower and you're talking about running it at less boost, you're talking about a 10 to 20 horsepower gain for $2,000. I'd say that's not worth it, but at the end of the day, you got to be the one that quantifies the worth. Some people got it like that and they don't care about 2 Gs, and 20 horsepower is worth 2 Gs to them. I'm not one of those guys.
I'm not either. 2 Gs is still painful.
Yeah, Dakota Haywood, I'd probably do you guys trade-in system, I think.
Oh,
The
Yeah.
trade-in system's beefed up right now during the Independence Day sale.
okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you were gonna do trade-in, it'd be beneficial to you to do it when we have the price bump on trade-ins.
Eric Struble, thanks for my help on my POS saline, fellas. Sounds like there's an issue. Where do you guys think it's at? I
Hard
don't
to
know
say.
anything about that car, other than
I
I,
was
moved it
sus-
forward 2 feet.
I suspect that's the blue one that
Yeah.
Mike's been working on.
Pretty car.
Yeah, good looking car. Hard to say because your paddle shifters aren't working and there's nothing we can do about that.
So sad.
I don't know if you guys had recently pulled the steering wheel out of the car, but it looked like the control switch on the left-hand side wasn't quite sat all the way against it. And that's kind of the only reason I noticed the wheel wasn't stock. Not to say it doesn't look stock, it does, but it just caught my eye. So I'm wondering if the select shift paddles were plugged back in when the steering wheel was swapped, because from a tuning standpoint, we put it back to a stock strategy. The paddle shifter still didn't work. It still doesn't recognize paddle shifter movement. And it looks like the wheel's been off recently. So I don't know how recently that was or when exactly the paddle shifter stopped working, but that's probably where I'd start. In reference to the power it's making, it's hard to say. I'd probably start with a comp leak down and put a fresh set of plugs in it. But with the way the car is given to us, we tune the car the way it is. We usually interact with the customer at the point in time we feel something needs to be done. Whether we're the ones that do it or the customer is the one that does it is an entirely different matter. But if you don't want to pay us to try and diagnose it or see if we can find anything that would lead to why it's making the power that it's making, then you got to kind of do some of that investigation on your own. Which, like I said, I'd probably start with a comp leak down just to confirm the health of it, and then go from there.
Yep.
Jesse, Michelle already emailed me the tune correction on the kit is the Gen 3R kit. Sweet. Then,
That was the one that, yeah, that's why I went back to look at it. Such a super excited.
oh, nice. Hell yeah.
So we are excited to have you in the family.
True story. True story. Yeah, glad to hear you're excited. Hope you enjoy the blower. Bob Wayne, 2013 Stage 3 Roush engine 7/8 headers, ID 1050X is boost pump twin 67. Will the JLT 123 bigger be adequate?
Yes.
What power level does that cold air need replacing? I'd say if you're going to be above like 800 wheel and you're looking for every ounce of power, going to something bigger isn't a bad idea when you're talking about the 11 to 14 JLT 123. But how much you gain and whether or not it's worth replacing is an entirely different matter. We've made, I want to say 950 to 1,000 horsepower in a JLT 123 before. That's not to say that going to 148 we wouldn't have picked up more, but that's also to that same end.
It
the
can't be that
cold air
restrictive.
physically flowed that much air.
Yeah, it can't be that restrictive.
Yeah, so if you're talking about a Stage 3 Roush car on pump gas, I wouldn't worry about changing the cold air at all. That should be fine.
Yep.
And with that, is it time?
It's time for Brian's question. Or was that your question earlier, Brian?
Oh, no, I have a different one. That was just an add-on to what I had earlier.
Oh, okay.
I have a different question if you guys want it.
Absolutely.
Fire away, homie.
All right.
We love educating you.
Edumacating?
I appreciate it.
When
So-
you're not in Facebook jail, you bad person.
Indeed, yeah. Sometimes I get put in for the stupidest things.
I'm gonna start reporting all those posts.
You should, yeah. That'd be really fun. Just give me the month, you know what I'm saying? I get a lot of stuff done. I was so productive the last 3 days, you know. So me and you did a video a while ago, right? And it was remember the MAF sensor video we did on Steve's car?
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand how all that works, right? Because I remember having to put it together and like I had to make all the things and whatnot. So like my question is, and now let me like stack this on top of it as well. I saw there was a video where Chuck and Chris went and they made like, remember that stupid little cold air that they made?
Yeah,
Everybody was
from
like,
AutoZone or
what
wherever the
in
hell they
God's
got it.
name is this? Yeah, they came from AutoZone. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It was amazing.
It was perfect. And I remember Saucepaws, he put the MAF sensor in it, right? And you told them that like the next time you do this, you can't do it on the corner. It needs to be in the straightaway where it gets like the most airflow, right?
Correct.
You want stable airflow.
Stable airflow, right. So now I understand all of that. Like I understand it has like the position it needs to be in, and I don't quite understand even what it does. But like, so I guess the question is, what does the MAF sensor do, and how does a little thing sticking into a tunnel tell you how much whatever is going through here?
I'd be better off showing you one. As far as how it works, I'd be better off showing you one.
Okay.
So inside that big plastic thing that sticks inside the tube, there's
Yeah.
a little resistor.
Right?
And are you familiar with resistance and electricity?
No, not really.
If something gets hotter, the resistance goes up traditionally with a resistor, unless you're
Okay.
talking about, they have like reverse resistor
Yeah.
type things. So your voltage goes up
Okay.
as it gets hotter.
Mhm.
And the airflow
Or as it
cools it back down.
cools off. I'm
You're
thinking
thinking of
of
the hot wire ones.
Yeah, I'm thinking of hot wires and its reverse resistors that I need to be thinking of. Anywho, as the air passes past the sensor or the little resistor, the temperature of it changes.
Okay.
That the amount of change in temperature you get versus the 5 volts they pump into it or the 12 volts they pump into it, depending on the sensor, tells you how much air is passing it when you have a table set up for it. So inside the tune, there's a table that's mass airflow, depending on what strategy you're talking about. You're talking about a voltage-based MAF or a frequency-based MAF. So a voltage-based MAF, the higher the voltage, the more airflow you have. The frequency-based MAF, the higher the frequency, the more airflow you have. So when you have that little sensor in there detecting airflow, all it's really detecting is how cool the sensor is getting with the pumping voltage that's put into it.
Yeah.
So as the values in the resistance change, it goes to a different part of the lookup table to tell it how much air it's flowing
Got it.
based on
Okay.
that value.
So it's not technically detecting how much air is in here. It's detecting what the temperature is, how much is changing, and by that.
It's
So-
detecting all the sensor does. The sensor is strictly, we'll use voltage because voltage is easier than the frequency one. So we'll pretend voltage.
Okay.
There's a little wire in there that it heats up, so your airflow increases, it cools that wire down. So the PCM says, hey, this wire's not hot enough.
Right.
So it gives it more voltage to heat the wire back up.
Okay.
So then you say, okay, so then the PCM goes, I need 1.2 volts to maintain the temperature of this wire at where we're at right now. So then there is a table that it goes 1.2 volts, I must be flowing this much air.
Right.
And then the computer uses that number
Right.
for calculations. So then you go full throttle. Now all of a sudden there's a bunch of air coming in. That wire cools down. And then the computer goes, oh, I need 3 volts to keep this wire hot. So it goes down its list and it goes, at 3 volts, I must be flowing this much air.
But that table could be anything, right? Like
We
you could-
program that table.
Right. That's you could go in there and change that as well.
Yes, which they call the mass error transfer function.
Okay.
So-
that's what that.
That is the mass error transfer function.
It transfers
I
a
like it.
voltage into an airflow pound a minute.
Everything just
So
connected,
now,
bro.
so then
Okay.
we go in there. Part of calibrating a tune is we tell it at this voltage or this frequency you are flowing this much airflow.
Okay,
So
yeah.
when you add a cold air intake that is physically larger, so now you have a larger tube because the tube is larger. More air goes past that sensor without the sensor seeing it because the tube is larger. So more can go past it. So you end up with more air into an engine that the sensor doesn't see. So now all of a sudden your tune is super lean because you're getting extra air that the computer doesn't recognize. So we go in and we tell it, we raise the transfer function and we tell it at this voltage. So before you would say at 1 volt it used to flow 10 pounds per minute. Now you're flowing 14 pounds per minute. And all of a sudden everything is back into queue again. And we have to go through and kind of adjust it. And that's why it's important to have that sensor on a straight tube. Is if you put it on a bend, if you put it over here on the backside of a short radius of a bend versus over here, that airflow, it changes how the air hits the sensor and will throw it completely off. So like if you put one on the outside of a bend, it'll see all of that air.
And then at
And
lower
it'll-
airflows, it might take a different
Right.
turn through that radius.
So take that same sensor, it's in the same size tune, move that over to your short side radius, and all of a sudden it's not seeing any of the air because it's going around it.
Right.
And
which,
now all of a sudden you're going to be super lean because all that air is going in the engine and the sensor doesn't see it.
which also explains why in the video that we did, when you don't have the shield there and it starts making the tornado loops,
Yep,
Yeah.
why
absolutely.
everything starts going all.
So in a
like,
perfect world, in a perfect world,
I don't know what's
yep,
going
in
on.
a perfect world, you want a dead straight tube with an actual air straightener. That's actually, they make air straighteners, which is like a honeycomb,
Right.
that the air goes, the turbulent air hits this honeycomb and it straightens it out so the air is going dead straight through this tube. That is the most accurate your sensor will ever be.
And velocity stack.
And a velocity.
Velocity stack and an airflow straightener.
Basically a
Alright.
PMOS.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it.
So that's how mass air transfer functions work. That was a good question.
Thanks, man. Those were good answers, kids.
And that's why when people or when we get a log back from a customer and fueling's 30% off on known MAF and injector data, it's like unless the shape of that tube changed,
Right,
or you don't have the right sensor in it,
right.
or the way the filter's angled on the front of the tube before the MAF changes, that's that characterization of that sensor. And if it's 30% off, something's wrong.
Yes. See it. Seen it.
Seen it.
Saint it. We'll
And
do
with
these
that-
last three and then we'll get out of here, kids.
That's fine.
So we start with Bob then?
Yep, start with Bob.
Okay. I heard you guys have the carbon JLT air intakes. Are they full carbon fiber construction? They're carbon fiber hydro dip. They
They're not
stopped the
actually
carbon fiber.
carbon.
Yeah, they stopped the carbon fiber not destruction. Construction a long time ago.
But why though?
I don't know. That'd be something you have to hit up Jay about.
Money.
Somebody's. Wait, I don't know what this means. Maybe
Money.
maybe
What, small violin and money.
like rolling a booger. I don't know.
I want to say you can't say that they won't sell because the Hellcat guy, the Hellcat people won't buy a cold air intake if it's not made out of carbon.
Yeah.
If it's
They
made out of,
have been.
I would say if it's made out of anything but carbon, it's peasants.
I mean, I can't help it's both. And they use lightweight.
It is very true.
Dakota Haywood, will ID1000 injectors support 750 horsepower?
Absolutely.
On a gasoline-based fuel at the proper pressure, they will.
They'll do it on E85 too with enough pressure.
Yeah.
So you'll be all right.
Cody
Do it.
Woodward. Want more horsepower without sacrificing sound. I currently have an 03 Cobra with 22 KB. One of the Tune 2, mainly because of the sound it produces. I have
Yep.
nitrous to make up the horsepower loss between a 2.2 versus 2.6 versus 3.4, etc.
My lord, the 2.2s, did they scream, boy.
So if you want more horsepower and you have nitrous, jet it up.
Spray it.
Yeah. Hit it with the kit.
Man, the 2.2, the sound of the 2.2 is legendary. I still have a Cobra, 03 Cobra Kenny Bell ringtone. That
The
just
old days.
screaming. I had that ringtone for the longest time. I've played for Brian.
Sean's
And
already
it was-
done it for a while.
No,
No, it's not
it's
me.
not a bit, no.
Okay. All right.
But
I'm into it.
that was the side. Man, this thing screamed. But you could also fry an egg on the damn thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just spray more nitrous.
Yeah, it's like you kind of answered your own question there. I want more horsepower and I have nitrous. Okay, more nitrous. Easiest way.
Provided you have enough fuel system to handle it.
Yep.
Rob 508, would a clogged cat raise boost pressure? Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely, it can and it does.
So if
An engine's a big air pump, so if it's got a cork in it, and that blower, what Brian asked about earlier, that blower is spinning the same RPM no matter what. So now all of a sudden you put a cork in the engine, now all of a sudden that blower is shoving just as much air into the engine that can no longer get out of the engine. The pressure goes up quite a bit actually.
Yeah.
I've seen cats raise the boost 5 to 8 psi.
It's not going to be a good time.
We'll do it once.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it'll do it more than once, depending on the fuel.
I've
But
So
it's
then
usually a
even,
catastrophic failure.
Oh, I was going to say, so then talk to me about what happens. What happens when it's clogged and it's raising boost? So it'll,
Temperatures
So
go through the
you're-
roof.
You're attempting to squeeze the same amount of air into the cylinder that is of a fixed volume.
Okay.
So now you're throttling some of that air that you pushed in on a previous intake stroke, still in the combustion chamber because it wasn't able to be pushed out.
Yep.
and now you're trying to force more air in on top of that.
On top of an air that is already superheated because you've had a combustion stroke, so now you have that exhaust gas, which is 1,300 degrees. That exhaust gas can't get out because the cat's plugged. So the air in the cylinder stays 1,300 degrees. Now you have air and fuel coming into a cylinder that is already hot, and you get detonation, reignition.
So that's when we go boom.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
So
Bing, dang, ow.
and
So
then
let's fix that.
well, and a spin-off to Claus Cats is not having a broken or non-functioning intercooler pump will also cause booster rise because you will physically swell the intercooler bricks and less air can get through the intercooler brick and the boost will go up because the brick becomes a restriction.
In addition to that, when your air that you're discharging is expanding and it stays in that expanded state,
Correct. It's harder to shove it through stuff.
it's occupying more space and therefore making more boost.
Yep.
And with
Sink
that, virus finito.
Good episode. Good job, Joe.
Yeah, good questions, guys.
I give you a raise, Joe.
Dang.
Yep.
So do I expect that today,
I don't know. I guess
or is that like over the course of a couple of checks?
No,
I see what you did
I'm
there.
going to vote for you for Employee of the Month, Joe.
Oh, wait a minute.
What?
We don't do that no more. There are no employees of the month.
All right, guys.
Yeah, with that, we'll see you next week.
Love you long time.
If you guys want to see the other show that we do, it's Thursdays, same time. That'd be Justin and Rebecca. If you have product-related questions on release dates, info on up-and-coming products, those would be the two to ask about that. And if you want to know what VMP stands for, that would also be the two to ask about that. Hey. But yeah, have a good week, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday.
See ya.
Like, share, subscribe if you want more
Bye.
info like this. Bye,
What?
guys.